Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the annals of history. Today, we're traveling back in time, deep into the heart of Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, to explore one of the most iconic and influential empires the world has ever known, the Babylonian Empire. This story is so epic, we've split it into two parts. In this first episode, we'll uncover the rise of the first Babylonian dynasty and meet its most legendary ruler. So, where does our story begin? Picture the land between two rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, in what is modern-day Iraq. Around 4,000 years ago, this region was a mosaic of competing city-states. After the fall of the great Akkadian and Sumerian civilizations, a power vacuum emerged. It was a time of chaos and opportunity. From this turmoil, a new power began to rise from a city that, until then, had been relatively minor, the city of Babylon. The name Babylon itself is awe-inspiring, meaning Gate of the Gods, and it was an Amorite chieftain named Sumuabum who first established a kingdom there around 1894 BC, founding what we now call the First Babylonian Dynasty. For the next century and a half, his successors worked tirelessly, expanding their influence piece by piece. They built walls, dug canals, and engaged in the complex dance of diplomacy and warfare that defined the era. They were laying the groundwork, brick by brick, for something truly monumental. But the one name that echoes through history, the one king who transformed Babylon from a regional power into a legendary empire, was Hammurabi. He ascended to the throne in 1792 BC. Hammurabi was a master strategist, a brilliant diplomat, and a relentless military commander. He didn't just conquer, he absorbed and unified. He spent the first decades of his reign consolidating his power, forging alliances, and patiently waiting for the right moments to strike. And strike he did. One by one, he defeated his rivals. He conquered the powerful cities of Larsa, Ishnana, and the legendary city of Mari. His campaigns were swift and decisive. Through his military genius, he united all of Mesopotamia under a single ruler for the first time in centuries. The Babylonian Empire was born, with Babylon itself as its magnificent capital. Hammurabi wasn't just a conqueror, he was a nation builder. But what truly cemented Hammurabi's legacy wasn't just his conquests. It was his vision for a just and orderly society. He understood that to rule a vast and diverse empire, you needed more than just a strong army, you needed laws. This leads us to his most famous contribution to humanity, the Code of Hammurabi. Imagine a towering stone pillar, nearly 7.5 feet tall, covered in intricate cuneiform script. This was the stela on which Hammurabi's laws were inscribed. It wasn't the first law code in history, but it was by far the most comprehensive and well-preserved. It contained 282 laws, covering everything from commerce and property disputes to family law and criminal justice. At the top of the stela is a carving depicting Hammurabi receiving the laws from Shamash, the Babylonian god of justice. This was a powerful statement. These laws were not merely the king's whims, they were divinely ordained. The code's guiding principle is often summarized by the Latin phrase lex talionis, or the law of retaliation, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. For example, law number 196 states, if a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. This might sound harsh to our modern ears, but at the time, it represented a major step forward. It aimed to limit personal vengeance and replace it with a state-administered system of justice. It was an attempt to make punishments fit the crime, preventing endless cycles of retribution. However, the code was not equal for all. The punishments varied dramatically depending on the social status of the perpetrator and the victim. A nobleman who injured a commoner would face a much lighter penalty, usually a fine, than a commoner who injured a nobleman. Slaves, of course, were treated as property, and offenses against them resulted in financial compensation to their owner. So while it was a groundbreaking legal document, it also reinforced the rigid social hierarchy of Babylonian society. Beyond the famous eye for an eye principle, the code provides a fascinating window into daily life in Babylon. There were laws about faulty construction. If a builder built a house that collapsed and killed the owner, the builder was to be put to death. There were regulations for doctors' fees and malpractice. There were laws concerning agriculture, irrigation, debt, and marriage. It was a detailed blueprint for a complex, urban society. Hammurabi's goal was clear: to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak, Under Hammurabi and his successors, Babylon flourished. It became the largest city in the world at the time, a bustling center of trade, religion, and culture. The Babylonians made incredible advancements in astronomy and mathematics. They developed a sophisticated system of algebra, used quadratic equations, and could predict lunar and solar eclipses. They created a calendar with a 12-month year and a 7-day week, concepts that have profoundly influenced our own measurement of time. Their astronomers meticulously charted the heavens, laying the groundwork for future scientific discovery. This period, known as the Old Babylonian period, was a golden age of stability and intellectual achievement. But as with all great empires, this golden age could not last forever. After Hammurabi's death in 1750 BC, his empire began to slowly fracture. His successors lacked his political and military prowess. The empire faced internal rebellions and increasing pressure from outside forces, most notably the Kassites from the nearby Zagros Mountains and a formidable new power rising in the north, the Hittites. The final blow to the first Babylonian dynasty came around 1595 BC in a shocking and devastating raid. The Hittite king Mursili I swept down from Anatolia, marched all the way to Babylon, and sacked the city. The great capital, the Gate of the Gods, was plundered, its walls were torn down, and its glory was extinguished. The raid was brief, as the Hittites quickly retreated, but the damage was done. The Amorite dynasty that Hammurabi had built into an empire collapsed into the chaos, leaving a power vacuum that was soon filled by the Kassites, who would rule Babylonia for the next 4 centuries. After centuries of foreign rule by Kassites and Assyrians, a Chaldean chieftain named Nabopolassar saw his chance. The mighty Assyrian Empire was crumbling, and in 626 BC, he seized the throne of Babylon. He wasn't content with just ruling the city, he wanted to build an empire. He forged an alliance with the Medes, and together, they launched a full-scale assault on Assyria. In 612 BC, the unthinkable happened. Nineveh, the invincible Assyrian capital, fell. The old world order was shattered, and the Neo-Babylonian Empire was born. Nabopolassar laid the foundation, but it was his son, Nebuchadnezzar II, who would elevate Babylon to legendary status. Ascending to the throne in 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar was a brilliant military strategist and an even more brilliant builder. His reign of over 40 years is considered the golden age of the new empire. He secured and expanded its borders, launching campaigns into Syria and the Levant. One of his most famous and controversial military acts was the conquest of the Kingdom of Judah. This led to the destruction of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem in 586 BC and the beginning of the Babylonian captivity, a period where a significant portion of the Jewish population was exiled to Babylonia. This event is a pivotal moment in Jewish history, extensively documented in the Hebrew Bible. But Nebuchadnezzar is perhaps best remembered not for his conquests, but for what he built. He transformed Babylon into the most magnificent city of the ancient world. At its heart was the Edamananke, a colossal ziggurat that some believe was the inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel. It soared into the sky, a testament to the gods and the king's power. He also constructed the Ishtar Gate, a breathtaking entrance to the city adorned with deep blue glazed bricks and depictions of lions, dragons, and bulls. Fragments of this gate are now displayed in museums around the world, and they still take your breath away. And then there are the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, described by ancient Greek writers as an astonishing feat of engineering a man-made mountain of trees, shrubs, and vines. It was listed as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Imagine a lush, green paradise rising out of the arid Mesopotamian plain. The curious thing is, despite detailed Babylonian records from the time, there's no mention of these gardens. Archaeologists haven't found any definitive proof of their existence in Babylon. This has led to a fascinating historical debate. Were they a real creation, perhaps built by an earlier Assyrian king in a different city and later misattributed to Nebuchadnezzar? Or were they simply a romanticized fable, a figment of the Greek imagination, captivated by the exotic allure of the East? Real or not, the story of the Hanging Gardens has captured our imaginations for millennia. Beyond the bricks and mortar, Babylonian society flourished under Nebuchadnezzar. They made incredible advances in astronomy and mathematics. Babylonian astronomers meticulously charted the movements of the stars and planets, creating detailed star catalogs and developing sophisticated mathematical models to predict celestial events like eclipses. They were the ones who divided the day into 24 hours, the hour into 60 minutes, and the minute into 60 seconds, a system we still use every single day. They also developed the zodiac, linking constellations to specific times of the year. Their mathematical prowess was equally impressive, utilizing a base 60 system that allowed for complex calculations, from tracking astronomical data to managing the empire's vast economy. This was a civilization deeply invested in understanding the cosmos and applying that knowledge to everyday life. But golden ages don't last forever. After Nebuchadnezzar's death in 560 BCE, the empire entered a period of instability. A series of short-lived and ineffective rulers followed. The final king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire was Nabonidus, who came to the throne in 556 BC. He was an unusual king, more interested in religious history and archaeology than in politics or military affairs. He devoted much of his time to restoring ancient temples and promoting the cult of the moon god, Sin, even above Babylon's traditional chief deity, Marduk. This alienated the powerful and influential priesthood of Marduk in the capital. Nabonidus spent a decade away from Babylon in the oasis of Tama in Arabia, leaving his son Belshazzar to rule in his stead. This internal division and absent leadership left Babylon vulnerable. A new power was rising in the east, the Achaemenid Empire, led by the brilliant Cyrus the Great. The Persians were expanding at an astonishing rate, and Babylon was next in their sights. In 539 BCE, the Persian army arrived at the gates of Babylon. The story of its fall is the stuff of legend. The Greek historian Herodotus tells us that the Persians diverted the Euphrates River, which flowed through the city, allowing their troops to march into Babylon along the dry riverbed, taking the city by surprise during a great festival. Babylonian sources are less dramatic, suggesting a more straightforward surrender, perhaps aided by the disgruntled priests of Marduk who saw Cyrus as a liberator. Whatever the exact details, the result was the same. The city fell with little to no resistance. The great Neo-Babylonian Empire was over. Cyrus the Great proved to be a benevolent conqueror. He presented himself not as a foreign invader but as a legitimate successor chosen by Marduk. He respected local customs and religions. One of his first acts was to issue a decree allowing the exiled peoples, including the Jews, to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. This act ended the Babylonian captivity and earned him a revered place in the Bible. Though the empire was gone, the city of Babylon continued to be an important cultural and administrative center under Persian, and later, Hellenistic rule. Alexander the Great himself was so impressed by Babylon that he planned to make it the capital of his own vast empire, but his untimely death in the city in 323 BC prevented that. Over the following centuries, as new capitals rose, Babylon's importance dwindled. Its population gradually moved away, and the magnificent city slowly fell into ruin, its sun-dried bricks dissolving back into the desert sands. Today, the ruins of Babylon, located in modern-day Iraq, are a powerful reminder of this incredible civilization. From Hammurabi's code of law to Nebuchadnezzar's architectural marvels and the groundbreaking discoveries of its astronomers, Babylon's legacy is woven into the very fabric of our modern world. It's a story of ambition, innovation, and the inevitable cycle of rise and fall that defines human history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the history of the Babylonian Empire. If you enjoyed this two-part series, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into ancient history, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Let me know in the comments which ancient civilization you'd like to explore next. Until then, stay curious.